Hello and welcome to this lesson. In this lesson, we're going to start taking a look at CSS. So we say that CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's an acronym for Cascading Style Sheet. And what do we use it for? We use CSS to beautify our websites. HTML is made in such a way that it cannot add beauty or styles or design to the website, but CSS was made such that it can add beauty or it can define the styles to the HTML page. And these styles include the design, the layout, how do you want the website to look, the spacings, the borders, everything about the design, the positioning of your texts and images, how it will display in other devices. So that's what CSS can help us to achieve. We also take a look at CSS syntax. So when we come over here, we make use of CSS to define the styles of the HTML elements or the HTML tags. We already know the difference between HTML tag and HTML elements. So we use CSS to define the style or the outlook or to beautify the HTML element. This is an example here. We have a HTML tag or HTML element of h1, and this h1 defines the size of the HTML text. So we can use CSS to add other beauty or other styles to it. So this is the format or the syntax of CSS. First of all, we have to select the element or the tag, followed by a few declarations. So a declaration is separated by a semicolon. We can have many declarations in one block. So the opening of the block is the semicolon, the opening curly braces, and the block is closed by another closing curly braces. So from here to here is a declaration block, and here is the selector. So right here we selected the HTML element of h1, and then we have a block of declarations. Now in every declaration you have a property that you want to style and the value of the style. So what we have here now is that we have selected h1 element, and we've selected the color property, and we have given it the value of blue. It means that the h1 element will now have a blue color. Now this is the first declaration. We separated it by a semicolon. Now we have another declaration here, and the property is the font size, and we assigned a value of 12 pixels to it. So here we can determine the size of the HTML element. We can increase it to 20 pixels to 50 pixels depending on what we want to design. So we've already explained this here. The selector points to the HTML elements that you want to style. The declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by semicolons, and then each declaration includes a CSS property name and the value separated by a colon. Alright, so let's take a look of this and see how it is applied. Alright, so this is our About Us page, and one of the ways, there are three ways that we can make use of CSS in our project. Alright, So for us to make use of CSS in our HTML projects, we can make use of it internally, externally, or inline. These are the three ways we can make use of CSS in our project. The first one is internal CSS, the second one is external CSS, and the third one is inline CSS. Alright, so let's make use of internal CSS for this lesson, and in the next lesson we can talk about external CSS and inline CSS. So the internal CSS is when the CSS code are in the head tag, in the head element of your project. They are on the same page with your HTML project, but they are inside the head element. So here is our head element. This is the opening tag and the closing tag. So we can write our CSS code right inside the head element. So for us to make use of internal CSS, we use the HTML tag style, the HTML element style. And once we have the HTML element style, we can then start declaring, selecting our elements. First of all, we have to select the element we want to style. Then we give it a declaration by giving values to the properties. Alright, so right now I want to select the h1 element. So remember, I'm using the internal CSS, I'm using CSS internally. So I'm writing the CSS code in the head tag of the HTML, and I'm making use of the style element. Alright, so when I'm using CSS internally, I will make use of the style element. Style is a HTML tag. So I've declared the style element. So right now I want to select the h1 element, then give it value to the color property. Alright, so in the style element, I'll select the h1 element like this. Alright, and when I've done that, I will have to create a block. Alright, and inside this block I want to declare the color property. Alright, and in this color property I'll have to choose the color I want to assign to the h1 element. So I want to choose something like this. Before then, let's take a look at the site. You can see that this is the h1 element. This is the h1 element, and by default it is black color. So like right here, this is our h1 element. This is about us page. Alright, it is black color by default. So right now I want to assign it a color of red. Alright, so I've assigned a color of red to the h1 element. So right now we can see that our h1 element has changed to red color. So we can assign it any color we like. We can change the color to green. Alright, okay, this is green, and the color is changed to green. You can change it to blue. Okay, when you bring your mouse over here, you can choose any color you like. Okay, so I can change it to blue. So let's take a look. The color has changed to blue. I can equally change it to yellow. Alright, so the color has changed to something like yellow. Alright, so So we've given a declaration right here, and the declaration ends with this semicolon. The declaration in this block ends with this semicolon. Now we can still give another declaration to the font size. We have so many things that we can declare here, but I'd like us to take a look at the font size. So I can give it a font size of 10 pixels. If that's the design I want, you can see that it has reduced the size of the text to 10 pixels. I can give it a font size of 30 pixels. It has increased it to 30 pixels. I can increase it to also 60 pixels. You can see that the text has increased to 60 pixels. So that is a simple introduction to CSS. We've been able to select an element, and we've been able to create a block, and we've been able to declare some properties and assigned some values to it. Alright, that's that for this lesson. Thank you for watching. We'll continue in the next lesson.